The cold silence of the command deck stretched across light years. Suspended in orbit above Earth, the observation vessel's Thanner drifted invisibly, cloaked from the primitive technologies below. Inside, Commander Velith stood motionless, her obsidian eyes scanning a swirling sea of data reflected across a translucent console. Her skin shimmered faintly with silver bioluminescence, her long pale hair neatly braided to denote rank. She was Zyrian, an elite of a species bred for intellect, immune to the chaos of sentiment. Humans were curious anomalies. Their behavior was erratic, riddled with inefficiencies, contradictions, and above all, emotion. Fascinating but dangerous. And yet, Central Command had issued a clear directive: observe, catalog, do not engage. But Velith requested more. She had watched their wars, their art, their absurd rituals, and, most confounding of all, their attachment to each other. Her reports lacked understanding. What logic explained a mother shielding a child with her own body? Or a soldier weeping for a fallen comrade? She wanted proximity, immersion. Central Command hesitated, but her impeccable record carried weight. They granted her clearance. She took the form of a human woman, pale-skinned with silver blonde hair, enough to blend in but retain authority. Her synthetic identity was Dr. Vale Rowan, a visiting cultural anthropologist. Her location, a modest coastal town named Halewick, population 3,042. Quiet, isolated, rich in behavior worth analyzing. Velith's first encounter with the subject species was unremarkable. She observed them at markets, cafes, public parks, documenting gestures, noting tones of voice, eye movements, proximity biases. The variables were infinite and frustratingly inconsistent. On her third day, she met Jonas Hale. He was messy, his beard uneven, his smile slightly crooked. His clothing defied symmetry: flannel shirts and worn jeans, mismatched socks. He worked at the local repair garage, smelled faintly of motor oil and cinnamon gum. He greeted her with a wide, careless smile and called her Document. "Need help with the rental?" he asked, gesturing toward the stubbornly uncooperative hatchback she'd chosen as a cover vehicle. She hesitated. The proper response protocol did not cover unsolicited mechanical assistance. "Accept your offer," she replied awkwardly. He chuckled, already crouched by the front tire. That sounded very robotic. Document. A flicker of offense registered in her mind. She quickly suppressed it. "Perhaps your own speech is overly informal." "Probably," he grinned. "But it works." He had no idea she wasn't what she appeared, and that disturbed her more than she expected. Over the next few weeks, Jonas became a recurring variable. He appeared at coffee shops when she was studying human interactions, offered unsolicited, but strangely helpful, commentary on local customs, and once invited her to a small gathering, which she declined with an emotion she later identified as reluctance. She logged every detail. His laughter, short, sharp, with a vocal spike at 600 Hz. His tendency to make eye contact longer than necessary. His habit of watching her when he thought she wasn't looking. She dismissed it as curiosity, until she felt it in return. It began subtly. When he wasn't around, her thoughts drifted toward him. She began anticipating his presence, adjusting her schedule, planning her outfits. The realization struck her during an interaction at the market. Jonas leaned over a crate of apples, holding one up. "Red Delicious or Granny Smith?" She stared at him blankly. He grinned. "You really don't eat much fruit, huh?" "No," she replied. "But I believe the red variety aligns more closely with the sugar preference observed in your species." He stared at her, then laughed. "You're a riot. Document." She found herself smiling. Later, in her isolated quarters, Velith reviewed the interaction. There was no strategic advantage to that exchange. No data gained. And yet, she replayed the smile. The warmth. "Contamination possible," she whispered aloud. She initiated a Level 3 diagnostic scan. Neural sync, stable. Emotional dampeners, intact. No external breach. Then why this flutter? The term surfaced from her previous analysis: butterflies. A purely metaphorical description of internal unease. Emotional excitation. She searched the database. Romantic stimuli. Pheromonal triggers. Cortisol elevation. Dopamine spikes. One term kept appearing. Ridiculous. Illogical. Inefficient. And yet, when Jonas invited her to a community bonfire, she said yes. The event was chaotic, unstructured noise, erratic lighting, bodies in motion. Yet, through the din, she tracked Jonas easily. His voice guided her like a beacon. They sat near the flames, a blanket shared between them. His arm brushed hers. She did not withdraw. "You ever feel like you're just pretending to be normal?" he asked suddenly, gaze fixed on the fire. The question startled her. It was too close to her reality. "Yes," she answered. Turned to her, surprised. She added quickly, "It is a common cognitive pattern among highly intelligent individuals." He chuckled. "Well, thanks. I'll take that as a compliment." The moment stretched. Neither spoke. A new variable pressed against her awareness. Desire. Not carnal, not yet. But the desire to remain. To understand. To connect. She terminated the night early, citing fatigue. He looked disappointed. Back aboard her vessel, she initiated an emergency transmission to Central Command. Zyrian Archive Log 3197B. No response came that night. The next morning she returned to the garage. Jonas was underneath a rusted pickup, oil trailing down one arm. He saw her boots and rolled out. "Well, hey there. Didn't expect to see you again so soon." "I require your assistance," she said flatly. He raised a brow. "With the car again?" "No. With understanding." He stood slowly. "Understanding what?" Her voice faltered. "Humans. Relationships. Jonas blinked. Then smiled cautiously. "That's a pretty big topic. You sure you're ready for that?" "No. But I must begin somewhere." He rubbed the back of his neck, then gestured toward a pair of chairs outside the garage. "Well, come on, document. Let's start with the basics." As they sat, sunlight warmed her synthetic skin. The wind carried the scent of pine and fuel. She watched him. Observed. Listened. But now her questions weren't entirely academic. "What does love feel like?" she asked. He looked away for a long time. "Like gravity, maybe. You don't notice it much until someone's missing and everything feels off balance." She recorded the metaphor, then stopped herself. "Is it voluntary?" Jonas laughed softly. "Not even a little. That's kind of the curse, I guess. Or the gift." She tilted her head. "And what do humans gain from this experience?" He shrugged. "Connection. Maybe a reason to wake up in the morning. Unquantifiable. Unmeasurable." Yet her chest ached. She returned to her quarters that evening with no answers. Only questions. And a name that felt like a key unlocking forbidden doors. Jonas. Before initiating sleep mode, she deactivated her emotional suppressors. Just for the night. And when she dreamed, yes dreamed, she saw a fire, a crooked smile, and two hands brushing in the dark. Tomorrow she would ask him what comes after love begins. And that, she thought, might be the most dangerous question of all. The days grew heavier. Not in weight, but in meaning. Velith felt it in every glance, in every pause between Jonas's words, in the spaces they now inhabited together without saying much at all. Silence had become intimate. She had once believed her mission was a controlled experiment. Observe, interpret, report. But now, she no longer felt like a scientist standing over the petri dish. She had become a participant, and worse, an unreliable narrator of her own reactions. That morning, he brought her coffee. She'd told him once she disliked the bitterness. "I added vanilla," he said with a grin. "Thought I'd convert you." She accepted the cup, her fingers brushing his. It felt like a static shock. No, not static. A current. A charge. "Vanilla," she repeated. "You remember minor details. That behavior pattern indicates emotional attachment." Jonas blinked. "Or maybe it just means I listen when you talk, document." She didn't respond. There was no appropriate reply. None that didn't cross a line she no longer trusted herself to define. Later that day, she requested a private uplink to Central Command. Emotional data stream analysis incomplete. Request, clarification of known contagion threshold for mimetic projection phenomena, designated love. Observation, subject is not a threat. Contradiction, subject occupies increasing bandwidth in cognitive subroutines. Speculative note, possible evolution beyond programmed tolerances. Directive requested. The reply was swift and severe. Commander Velith, your attachment to the human subject exceeds mission parameters. Emotional deviation suggests active contamination. Report for extraction or undergo protocol termination to preserve species integrity. This is not a request. She stared at the text for a long time. She knew what they feared. Emotional compromise, deviation from logic. The Zyrian doctrine did not permit sentimentality. Love was considered a primitive evolutionary residue, a leftover code from chaotic origins. But when she thought of Jonas's laugh, the way his eyes crinkled when he told stories about his late father, or the quiet grief he carried without ceremony, she couldn't call it residue. It was clarity. That night, she skipped her diagnostics. Instead, she met Jonas in the town square. Music drifted from a busker playing a weathered guitar, and people danced in mismatched pairs. It was chaotic, uncoordinated, messy. Come on, he said, extending a hand. I do not dance. You don't yet. He pulled her gently. She let him. He moved in easy rhythms. She followed in calculated steps. But slowly, calculation gave way. She was no longer counting seconds or monitoring proximity. She was just moving. With him. Afterward, they sat on the hood of his truck under a sky filled with artificial stars too bright for any real atmosphere. You're different, he said quietly. I am aware. No, I mean it. You think different. Speak different. But I don't mind it. Not one bit. Velith turned to face him. And yet you do not ask why. I figure you'll tell me if you want to. His trust was disarming. She had known spies, soldiers, engineers. None had this brand of strength, the kind that offered space rather than demanded answers. He reached out and tucked a strand of her hair behind her ear. The gesture was so small, and yet she felt it like a nova behind her ribs. I care about you, Vale, he said. I don't know what your story is, but I feel it. And I think you feel it too. She opened her mouth to deny it. The words didn't come. Her throat locked. Her voice betrayed her. Instead, she stood. I must go. Jonas rose, confused. Did I say something wrong? No, her voice was hoarse. You said something correct. She walked away fast, not trusting her stability. Inside her quarters, she ran a full neural sweep. The results were conclusive. Her emotional dampeners had eroded. She was feeling deeply, dangerously. The next day, she avoided him. She thought distance would help recalibrate. She was wrong. She found herself searching for his scent in the air, hearing echoes of his voice in meaningless crowd noise. Her work logs were incomplete. Her uplinks to command, silent. They would not accept further deviation. But the thought of leaving him now felt worse than violation. It felt like erasure. By the fourth day, Jonas found her. She was standing by the harbor, watching the tide roll in with algorithmic precision. You running? He asked gently. I should be. Because of me? Because of me, she replied. He stepped closer. Then tell me what you're so afraid of. She turned, eyes burning. That I am not what you think. That I was never meant to feel. That this, all of this, was not supposed to happen. He blinked. Are you dying? No. Dangerous? No. Then it happened. And I'm glad it did. She shook her head. You don't understand. Then help me. Her voice cracked. I was sent to observe you. I am not human. I was not built for this. Jonas stared at her. For a long time, he said nothing. Then, slowly he nodded. I figured. What? I mean, you never blink. You talk like you're writing a science thesis, and I've never seen you sneeze. Honestly, the not human thing was low on the list of surprises. You are not angry? No. Confused, maybe. But not angry. Just tell me one thing. Was any of it real? All of it, she whispered. He stepped closer. Then screw the mission. Stay. She laughed softly, bitterly. You don't understand what that means. I don't need to. I just need to know what you want. She stared at him. In that moment, everything, the mission, the consequences, the vastness of interstellar law, faded into something painfully human. And she didn't know what she wanted more, to stay or to not have to choose. She reached out, her fingers barely brushing his chest. He placed his hand over hers, grounding her. This connection, she began. Call it whatever you want, he said. But I know what it feels like. Her voice broke on a whisper. They call it love. Yeah, he said. That sounds about right. As the wind whipped around them, she leaned forward. Their foreheads touched. Her skin glowed faintly against his. It was no longer about observation or data. It was about being. When she pulled away, her eyes shimmered with more than light. I may not be able to stay, she said. Then give me today, he replied. And she did. Back in her quarters that night, she initiated a secure uplink. Zyrian Archive Log 3197-C. Subject classified. Directive deviation confirmed. Identity compromised. Emotional synchronization complete. Requesting personal amnesty or authorization for permanent Earth integration. Reason, I have found something worthy of study. They call it love. I call it evolution. The reply did not come. She sat in silence, staring at the screen. Outside, a knock on her door. So familiar. She stood and opened it. Jonas, smiling. Thought you might want to watch the sunrise. She nodded, stepping outside, into the light of a planet that had taught her something her species never had. The cost and the beauty of connection. Tomorrow could bring exile. But tonight she had him. And that was enough, for now. The silence from the Zyrian command stretched across the days like a dark thread unraveling in her mind. Every hour that passed without a response tightened the uncertainty coiled in Velitha's chest. Her neural implants pinged occasionally, low-frequency pings designed to keep her tethered to the network. They did not escalate to a recall beacon. Not yet. But the absence of reprimand was not permission. It was the quiet before judgment. Jonas noticed the shift. He never asked about her messages, never pressed when her expression hardened or her pupils flickered silver in low light. But he began to linger more. She caught him watching her in moments when he thought she wasn't looking, eyes full of curiosity, tempered with something gentler. Something frighteningly close to hope. They spent their days exploring the city, and their nights in slow conversations that began with laughter and ended in stillness. He showed her a world beyond tactical observation. Books with cracked spines and wildflowers growing between concrete slabs, long drives to nowhere, hands brushing between gears. Each new detail carved deeper into her. One evening, while the sun dyed the horizon in blood-orange haze, Jonas took her to an old observatory. It was barely functional, abandoned years before. The roof panels were rusted, the telescope still intact but covered in dust. He wiped off the control console and motioned her over. You're gonna love this. He powered the telescope manually, aligning it with practiced ease. The dome slowly shifted. She stood beside him, hands clasped behind her back, watching the screen flicker to life with a live projection of the stars. There, he said, point. That's Andromeda. She looked. Incorrect. That's Messier 31. Jonas smirked. Sure, but Andromeda sounds cooler. She didn't correct him again. He turned to face her, shadows pooling beneath his eyes. Do you ever miss it? My planet. Yeah. She hesitated. I do not know. I was born in a vessel. Raised for function, not sentiment. So, you're saying this is your first home? She blinked. The word pierced through layers she hadn't realized she'd built. I suppose, yes. He leaned closer. Then I'm glad it's with me. The kiss was inevitable. It wasn't sudden, it was a culmination. 1,000 unspoken admissions passed between them in a moment of suspended breath. When their lips met, her implants sparked warnings, soft red pulses dimming as instinct overrode code. Afterward, she leaned her forehead against his. "They will come for me." "Let them," he whispered. "I won't let you go without a fight." The next morning, they came. The sky cracked open above the ocean, tearing light across clouds in a silent scream. No sound. Just pressure, enough to make bones tremble and glass fracture. Civilians looked up in awe and fear. Most thought it was a storm or a military experiment. But Velith knew. Zyrian harvesters did not arrive gently. By dusk, the city's power grid pulsed with interference. Buildings flickered between light and shadow. Jonas found her on the rooftop of his apartment complex, her eyes already turned to the horizon. "They've sent an enforcer," she said. "Designation, Inquisitor class." "Can we run?" "No. It will track my genetic code." Jonas didn't flinch. "Then we don't run." She turned toward him. "You do not understand. They are not here to negotiate." "I know." "Then why do you stay?" He took her hand. "Because love isn't about logic, Vale. It's about choosing someone even when it doesn't make sense." She could say nothing to that. There was nothing left to say. The harvester descended just beyond the hills, taller than buildings, shaped like a blade thrust into the earth. From its base, a single figure approached. Humanoid in structure, cloaked in black alloy, with eyes like molten quartz. No need for weapons. His presence was execution enough. "Infiltrator Velith, 9. He intoned as he stepped into the clearing. "You are in breach of the directive. Come now." She stepped forward. "This is not your jurisdiction. You belong to the collective. You are property. You will return or be reduced to code." "I resign my identity," she said, voice sharp. "I refuse integration. I choose my own path." The Inquisitor tilted his head as if confused. "Emotion is a liability." "And yet," she said, stepping closer, "I have never been more certain." His form shifted. Defensive stance. "You endanger the integrity of Zyrian evolution." "I enhance it." He raised an arm, light building in his palm. Jonas stepped between them. "Move," the Inquisitor ordered. "She's not going anywhere." The beam ignited. Time slowed. Velitha's body moved on instinct, her implants flaring to full combat readiness. In one motion, she launched forward, intercepting the arc of light, absorbing it with a scream that split sky from earth. She collapsed. Jonas caught her before she hit the ground, her body limp, smoke rising from her back. Her eyes fluttered. "I'm still processing." He cradled her, face pale. "Don't speak. Just stay with me." She looked past him, into the storm-swirled sky. "My signal is cut. They won't find me." "You did it," he whispered. "You're free." "No," she breathed. "We are." Behind them, the Inquisitor stood frozen. His system had registered a variable beyond prediction, sacrificial empathy. He processed the anomaly in silence, recalibrating his directive. Then he turned and walked away. Later, when emergency crews combed the wreckage of the landing site, they found no trace of Zyrian tech. Just scorched earth and a city on edge. Velith survived. Her body took days to regenerate, weeks to stabilize. She no longer glowed the way she once had. Her systems were permanently severed from the collective. She was, for all intents, human now. At least, in all the ways that mattered. Jonas stayed by her side the entire time. When she finally opened her eyes, she saw him, sleeping upright in a chair, unshaven, eyes ringed with exhaustion. "Still here," she murmured. He jolted awake. "Vale?" "Yes." He touched her cheek. "You scared me. You stayed." "Of course." She reached for his hand. "I do not know what happens next." "Neither do I," he said. "But we'll figure it out." They moved into a small house on the outskirts of town. A place with no cameras, no surveillance. A place where she learned to plant flowers, where he learned to cook alien recipes she barely remembered. Life settled into something neither of them could explain, but both understood. Years passed. The world changed. And when their daughter was born, silver eyes, stubborn heart, fierce smile, they named her Mira. Velith held the child close to her chest and whispered softly in the Zyrian tongue. "You are proof," she said, "that love is not weakness. It is the spark that reshapes galaxies." Jonas kissed her temple. "You're going to change the universe." She smiled. "I already did."